Hello, this afternoon I want to review Madwand by Roger Zelazny. It's the second and final book in his Changeling series. It sounds like he kind of started to do another series, but either decided to concentrate on Amber or just didn't want to get involved in another series. He wrote for quite a few years into the 90s after Madwand was published in 1981. I'm guessing that he wrote Changeling and Madwand kind of was one book and just separated them into two. In any case, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a fast-paced adventure, swords and sorcery type book. For people who know Zelazny, the style and the main character will seem very familiar. I don't think he breaks any huge new ground, but it's fun. I enjoyed it. So, in Changeling, we first encountered... you know what? Just watch my video about Changeling. I'll post a link below. Madwand, on the other hand, takes over from where Changeling ended, with our main protagonist, Paul Detson, in control of his newly awakened sorcery power. He's defeated his enemy, Mark Maxon, from the first book, who's also in some sort of strange, esoteric, magic-y, world-skipping way, sort of his stepbrother. And all Paul Detson now has to do is settle down in his castle, which is admittedly quite ruined, take control of his library, and take control of his power. Because he's an untrained talent, he ends up doing some things and going on a journey that seems a bit deterministic to the modern reader. And I've noticed this with quite a few of the early sorcery type books. It's almost as if your main protagonist hasn't got any choice. And that's particularly true for a lot of Zelazny's book, including Roadmarks, which is one of my favourites. The protagonist and the story are following its line, and there's no real questioning but that they're going to do it. Now here we've got Paul Detson being questioned a number of times about how advisable his actions are. For a start, he goes for this road trip with his friend Mouseglove the thief. Mouseglove thinks he's going in one direction, but ends up going with Paul Detson to this sorcerer's Ren Fair. It's not a medieval festival, it's not a Ren Fair, but it's kind of like that. It happens every 4 years. Sorcerers from all over this world come, and they bring their apprentices who may or may not be initiated. And a whole heap of cool magics, temporary town stuff happens. So along the way, Paul and Mouseglove encounter another sorcerer, an old sorcerer called Iqbal, something like that. Ibal. And they tag along with him. There's a whole lot of different plots here. And you're not really going to be able to follow them without having read Changeling. And I'm very, very glad that I didn't succumb to temptation. I didn't read this one. It was on my shelf for ages and I really wanted to. And the first few pages were intriguing. But I said, no, I'll wait. I'll read Changeling first. And thank goodness. I'm not sure how much of this you can really follow without Changeling. But this one starts in an intriguing way with a character that you don't have in Changeling at all. It's this drifting on the wind, almost ephemeral. We don't quite know what it is. It has no idea what it is. Maybe an elemental. It's just floating there in the main fortress that Paul is now inhabiting. And I've forgotten the name of it. Sounds like Rockwell, but isn't Rockwell. Ravenstow? No, not Ravenstow. Something beginning with R is the name of his fortress. My goodness, having an aging memory is so very annoying. Rondeval. So this ephemeral elemental thing is hanging around Rondeval, and it's hanging around Paul Detson. When Paul Detson goes on this little bit of a road trip, the ephemeral that doesn't even have a name or any self-knowing follows him and ends up in this town. In this town, Paul ends up accepting the offer Ibal sort of extends to him to undergo initiation. Initiation is meant to be a good thing for sorcerers. It increases their powers and everything. Most sorcerers serve as apprentices for years and years and years before taking the initiation, so Paul going into it with virtually no training or experience is only possible because he's a Madwand, someone who didn't come up through the normal tried and true apprenticeship paths of magic, but went straight in on their own. Paul doesn't tell very much truth about his background, and he hides up the dragon birthmark on his forearm that marks him as belonging to Castle Rondeval and the family of Detson. He knows that his father ended with a lot of people angry with him and ended up being killed by siege, that he was unbalancing the powers. There was a whole heap of stuff, so he's trying to be cautious, but he's actually just completely and utterly bull in a china shop, dashing in to find things out. Admittedly, one of the reasons why he went on this journey to begin with is that someone sent an assassin to finish him off in his own home. Didn't succeed. But yeah, so the rest of this is Paul Detson finding out about all the numerous powers that are trying to act on him and ensorceling him, and a lot of it, of course, is left over from his father's time that's acting upon him. And there's not a lot that you can actually say about this plot that doesn't have to do with the first Changeling and isn't spoilers. And essentially, in many ways, it doesn't matter. So you've got a magician who's just come into his power knowing nothing from our world. He's got a magic staff, he's got a magic dragon, he's got this magic castle, he's got all this stuff. And then you've got this basic, awesome sword and sorcery type adventure tale. So that's what it is. Again, I like Paul Detson. If he did do some pretty silly things, it's not anything sillier than any young man in his 20s isn't likely to do. There's a lot of subtlety and nuance to the things that he does do at times that a more experienced reader will pick up on, someone else might not. For example, right at the end there's this girl who is making doe eyes at him, and Paul is just sort of sliding away from that, and the experienced reader will realise that he's not keen on having another girl who is considered the girlfriend of another guy interested in him, but it's subtly done. It's maturely done. So this is very mature writing. And what else do we really have to say about it? I like the magic building. I am a little bit sad that this will never really go anywhere else. I feel like this could have made a series that would have been at least as interesting as the Amber series, because there's a lot more of this world and there's a lot more people in it that we could have explored a lot more. Yeah, so Madwand, do recommend. If you like Zelazny, you will automatically essentially just automatically love it. Once again, it's an illustrated Zelazny, but it's illustrated by a different artist to the one who did Changeling. So the illustrations here are done by Judy King, and there's a little bit of a bibliography on her at the back. I don't know her personally. Apparently she was into the fine arts, and selling her prints at a Renaissance fair when she was spotted by other people and became associated with various anthologies. While I enjoyed the artist in the first one, these illustrations are absolutely more beautiful. There's a delicacy, there's a depth to them, there's a balance that was lacking in the other ones that were basically sword and sorcery type black and white illustrations. These are, without exception, delicately done, beautifully conceived, with a level of richness that is really quite amazing and would make them wonderful prints to hang on the wall if you got a copy of one, which I feel like from the 80s back in the mists of time, I don't think too many people are likely to. I don't know how they were done, whether they are ink drawings or lithographs or whatever, but the delicacy of the line work is amazing. And Judy does some of the loveliest dragons I've ever seen. So you've got these complex illustrations, which probably bulk out what would have been otherwise a fairly shortish novel. to 281 pages. But again, because Zelazny's writing is so rich and so beautiful, I end up spending a lot of time with it. You don't rush through these pages. There may be a lot of action happening, but in essence, what you really want to do is you want to enjoy it. And you want to enjoy the rolling language, which I think is very specific to Zelazny. I think his writing is just beautiful. There's something about it that resonates deeply with me. So thank you for watching this review. If you want to discuss it further, by all means do so. But there's not a lot to talk about this, because even though it's a rich, fully satisfying book, it is an adventure tale. And I think anyone who reads much science fiction and fantasy knows what a sword and sorcery fantasy tale is. So yes, this is one of the better ones, in my opinion. Thank you for watching.